Hey there, sorry, 1 second. I just quickly need to send an invoice out. Shouldn't take longer than a moment. Looks like it's already well on its way. Let's quickly check to see that it actually looks right. Ta 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 ta. Perfect, awesome, pretty cool, isn't it? Now, hello and welcome to this tutorial where you learn how you can easily create invoices like this using Notion and Make. You might know the feeling, finding a somewhat decent invoicing software is pretty hard, in particular if you have some specific requirements. So why not build your own invoicing tool in Notion and save a lot of money while doing so? It's fairly simple to set up, endlessly customizable, and again, totally free. In this video, I'll walk you through the whole process step by step. And if you don't want to build this yourself, don't worry, I have a free, ready-to-use template for you with the free cool extra features in the description linked below. I still recommend that you check out this video so you understand how it works and you can add your own customizations to it. As always, you can use the timestamps to jump to a specific section or watch the whole video. If you do so, thanks a lot. That really helps me to create more content like this. Oh, and remember, there's probably specific legal regulations in your country as to what elements your invoice needs to contain. I can't give you any sort of legal advice, so do your own research and adapt this approach to create compliant invoices according to the laws that apply to you. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so for our invoice generator in Notion, we basically need 3 elements. We need the invoice itself. For that, we're going to use Google Docs. We need the backend where all the information is stored. For that, we obviously use Notion. And then we need an automation tool that combines both these things together. And for that, we're going to use Make. So the 3 distinct steps are here to set everything up in every app. So in Google Docs, we're going to create our template for the invoice. Then we're going to build out all the information that we need for all the invoices in Notion. And then we put it all together. And the reason we start with the invoice itself is that this way we actually know what sort of information we all need in Notion, so that when we build out our databases, we know exactly which properties we need. We can just open up a new document in Google Docs and then start designing our invoice. So again, I can't give you any legal advice, so do your own research, look up the requirements for an invoice in your country. Maybe you also find a template, and you can obviously also use that. And it's super straightforward. Use Google Docs like you would usually for an invoice, with just one difference. Instead, whenever you put some information or something in here now that you want to update dynamically for your invoice, so say for example we have at the very top we have the date or something like that, or then in the body of the invoice we have something like the address, and then we have after that we say dear customer, please find below the invoice services, and then again below we can just insert a table. Insert a table one for the name of the product, for the price, the quantity, and then the total price. So we do service maybe, price, quantity, and total, and then obviously add our different services. And now whenever we have the information that we want to update dynamically, we don't just write a date or the customer name. Instead, we write a so-called merge tag. A merge tag is a variable, and it tells Google Docs or whatever program we use later that this section should be replaced by some other data. And while that sounds complicated, it's actually super simple. All you need to do is whenever you have this sort of information, you just type 2 curly brackets, then the name for the merge tag, so in this case it would be date, and then you close again with 2 curly brackets. The one thing to remember is to not use spaces in between. So if you want to say like customer name, use an underscore, and that way everything will be fine. And yeah, that's basically it. The only other thing to remember is to be specific with the merge tags. So don't just write address here, because you will have your own address probably and your customer address. So do customer address and so on. And the cool thing with merge tags is that you can apply formatting to them, and that will carry over once information goes in. So if you want this at the very top, to be small, you can do that. If you want, for whatever reason, the customer name, maybe not that, but if you want the first service that you offer, or like the service always in a different color, right? If you want this in a deep red, you could do that, and once information gets filled in later, yeah, it will carry over. So write your invoice, or if you intend to download my template, you can use the one that I already created. So this is just the sample that we are going that my automation, the template uses. So as you can see, you have at the very top, I fill in a date and then the invoice number, my personal details in small, the customer details in a bit bigger, the subject line, then the customer name, and then up to 5 services, the invoice total, a payment goal, the bank details, and then the name. But yeah, you can do this however you want. You can add some styling or some other elements to make it look a bit better, or keep it rather minimalistic like I did here, and then you're already done with the first step of this automation. Moving on to Notion, it's time to build the backend. Now, we could just create one database and just create like one property for every merge tag that we have in our Google Docs invoice template, and then combine it together. That would be sort of the simplest version of this template. But if you look to build like a slightly more scalable system for your invoices, and maybe also want to have sort of a CRM in it and calculate other stuff like customer lifetime value or these things, then I would recommend that you break things out and create a few different databases. In fact, I would recommend that you create, I think it's 5 databases, let's count. I would create one for your products. I would create a database for your personal details, one for your customers, one for your invoices, and then just a small helper database for your invoice number, and that will make sense in a moment. So these are the, yes, I counted correctly, 5 databases that I would recommend you use. So can just create them and then turn them into pages, and then build out the databases for each section. And I have also a blog post linked down below with like a list of all the exact properties that I use for every subsection. I won't now build out every single property with you. That would take forever, but we can just look at a few examples. So the easiest and simplest database that we're going to create is the products database. Oops, for that one, all we need is the name of the product, and then we want the price, obviously. And then as an optional step, I won't do this for this automation, but the template below has it. If you, for whatever reason, need to offer your products in several currencies, because you maybe do things internationally and you adjust like the currency that you use from time to time, then I would recommend that you also add a currency field here. And yeah, then you can just fill this up with your products. I'm going to put in some sample data here. So sample product 1 will be for 50, and we can mostly go in there and like just say, okay, please turn this into dollars, and we can have sample product 2 for 25, and then the last one will be for 30. So yeah, It's super important when you build automations that you have always sample data in your databases, because otherwise it will be a big mess when you're later trying to build the automation itself. So yeah, that's it for products. Then you build out your details and your customer details. I'm going to do this and I'll be right back with you and then just show you the different properties that I use for each table. Okay, most of the databases are ready. Let's just quickly look at them. So we have the customers, and here we have the VAT ID, and then we have basically fields for the address, right? So street, city, country, the zip code, and like a customer contact name, just in case this is a company and we want to like address the different person in the invoice in this first part. And then just to make things easier for us, because remember, in the invoice we had one merge tag address. Now we could create like 5 merge tags. We could create one for street, one for city, one for country, but that would be a bit more work later down the line. So even if you write them out individually here in your database, I would recommend that you then create a simple formula to put everything together. And there's actually like a neat little trick in Notion to get like a line break in your formula, and that's to type this in like quotation marks and then an inverted backslash and then an N, and that will give you this line break. So as you can see, if I were to take this out here and one of the plus signs, there we go. Now it is in one line, so now I will add the plus back in and the sign so that we are all correct here. So that's the customers, and your own details look pretty much the same. You have again the VAT ID and then your address. And in your personal details, you also want to include your payment details, right? So your bank account, and then for both of these things, you want to create formulas to put them together. And as you can see, I have 2 different styles here. I have once this sort of in a line with the dots, and then this stack on top of each other again. That's just because I want to paste my own address in the invoice template, you know, in the very top, and the header of the invoice in small. So I want this layout, and I don't want it stacked, whereas like the payment details will be in the body of the email. So there, this is fine. And yeah, then just for the number of invoices, super simple. We will have a year property, so that for another year we can create like a new thing. And then I just have one with my last invoice and my next invoice, and let's actually just put them to 0 and 1. And yeah, then a little formula that will tell me what my next invoice is, but that's not necessary. Great, so all that's left to do is to go ahead and create our invoices. So let's do our invoices quickly and look at the fields that we need here. So first off, we obviously want the name of the invoice, and then after that, we want to be able to connect our details to this. So who's our customer, who are the details, like which are the personal details, right? We might have several ones, in particular several payment details. So let's create 2 properties that relate to that. So we do something for customer, and it's a relation, and we will relate it to your customers once it comes up. So perfect, your customers, and yeah, let's show this here as well, the invoices. Awesome, and let's do the same thing for our details. So again, let's pick a relation, pick this, show on both, and add that relation. So now, oops, let's just delete these 2 additional fields, and first test invoice, let's say we have our customer, the game, and our own personal details from Susan Doe. So that's connected. Next, we want to have in the definitely need to have the products. So we will create another relation for product. And now the way this works, you could do it probably also with all-in-one, but to keep things easier to understand with the automation, I would recommend that you create a separate product relation property for each product on your invoice. So you remember, like on my Notion to my Google Docs template, I had up to 5 products. So I would just like quickly think, okay, how many products do you max invoice per invoice? Maybe add one additional for safety margin and do that many. I would go with 5. I think that's a good number. If you repeatedly invoice more than 5 products, then maybe you need a more robust solution. You can obviously do this with Notion. You can do 50 here, but it's just a lot of manual work because we later need to connect each product to the respective merge field. So let's here in this example actually just do 2 products. So we're going to do product 1, and it will be a relation to our products. So let's look for the products. Perfect. Yep. We have this on both of them, and then let's create another product 2. So product 2, again, it's a relation to our products. This won't show up. So here we are, your products. I should label this unique, so something like this. Awesome. Now we can pull in our product. So let's pull in product sample product A and sample product B. Perfect. Next up, we need to specify, okay, how many. Remember, we had quantity on our invoice template, so let's do quantity, let's do P1 quantity. And this will be a number. And then we can just duplicate this and do product 2 quantity. And then lastly, we need to calculate the price for that. So we will do P1 total, and that is a simple formula where we multiply. Wait, forgot to pull in the price. So let's actually first let's get P1 price. So this will be a roll-up, and we are looking up product 1, and we want to get the price, and we want to not show the original, we want to have the sum, otherwise we can't make a calculation on it. And we're going to duplicate this and take product 2. So we connect this to product 2 to price here, and again show sum. Awesome. So now we can create our P1 total property. So we get a formula, and we say, please take product 1 quantity times product 1 price. Now in theory that should be all we need to do, but unfortunately Make currently has a slightly annoying bug where formula fields in Notion that return a number value are sometimes not recognized. I don't know why. I hope they fix it soon. But in the meantime, we need to make sure that our property, our formulas don't return a number. And there's a very easy way to do this. We simply wrap everything with a formula toString. So the string command, oops, so not, no, sorry, it's not toString, it's format. Confused that for a second. So we wrap everything with format, and that will, if we hover over it, this will format whatever we put inside as a string. You can also see this numbers in Notion. If it's a number output, it will always be on the right. If it's a string output, it will be left aligned. So as we can see, the price total is now a string, and we actually didn't put in a quantity. That's why. So let's sell 2 of product 1 and 1 of product 2. Perfect. Now again, we're going to take this one, oops, and we want to create a duplicate for our product 2. So we'll just quickly go in and change this to product 2 and the price to product 2. And now we have our total prices. This is basically all that we need. Now, depending on the other fields in your invoice, you might want to add a few additional ones. So we could add a payment goal, right? and we could add an individual subject line maybe, subject line, and we could say, okay, sometimes I need to add like specific legal remarks or so like we just add like another field for specific remarks. Perfect. Now I would recommend that in most of the cases to always use just a simple text property here. The exceptions are when you need to run a calculation on it, right, with a quantity, but otherwise I would just use a simple text one. You could, for a payment code, could also use the select option. Select option is also like just recognized as a string, so that works too. But yeah, in general, I would just keep it simple. So let's put within 1 week in here, and again, if you run the automation for the first time, put sample data into every field, even if you don't need a like an individual subject line. This awesome invoice, but otherwise it will make it much easier in the next step. And specific remarks, nothing really to add here. Okay, great. Now that's that. Let's take a quick break, and then we jump into the actual part of the automation. Okay, so now we are about to build our automation in Make. If you don't have a Make account, there's also a link for that in the description, together with a tutorial that walks you through the beginner steps of Make, so that if you've never used it before, you know what I'm talking about. But for now, we are just going to create our scenario to connect the data in Notion with our template. And we do that basically in 2 distinct steps. First, we need to pull in all the information from the invoice into the automation. And then in the second step, we use that information to generate the invoice itself. So we start with a Notion module, and we're going to pick the Watch Database Items module. And then we're going to grab the ID of our database. So we copy this, the link to this page, we paste this in our browser, and then we pick whatever is between the name of our workspace and the slash, and then the question mark, that's the database ID. So we copy that, go here, paste it in here. We want to have it by updated time in case we do any changes, and then we just set the limit high enough so that it grabs all invoices that we have. Perfect. And then, as always, we want to run this once to make sure that it actually collects some data. So I'm going in here and duplicate this once, and then run this module only. Pull in some information. Oops, okay, that was too soon, so we need to wait for a moment. Sometimes if you create something in the same minute that the automation tries to pull in data, then this doesn't work. So we're going to quickly wait a minute until the time is different, and then we can create another version of our, oops, now 46, so now it should be fine. Let's duplicate this again. Let's run this again and hope that it now shows up. Yes, perfect, here it is. So as you can see, it pulled in our invoice, and we have a bunch of data here. Perfect. So that was, now we looked up the information from our invoice database, but as you remember, we have also information in our other databases. So now we need to first pull in the information from our customer. So we want to get a database item. Again, in this one, and the database ID will be from before, and it will be, if we say the customer, it will be this ID. So now it will pull in the information from, what was that? Ah, wait, we have created database item. Sorry, that's the wrong module. We want to get a database item. Here, get a database item. Sorry for that. So we need the customer again, this ID. Now it should work perfect. And then we do the same for our for our own details. So then we say get a database item, and this time the ID is from our own details. So we look here for your details here, get that ID, put that in. Okay, so now what we do is we go back in here, we duplicate our trial data, and we run everything to make sure everything works properly. Awesome. So as you can see, it pulled in the information from our customers that we had connected. So we have now our street and everything in there, and same here, everything got loaded in. Cool. Last thing, a piece of information that we need to add now is the invoice number. So again, we need to this time search for an object because we didn't even link our invoice number database to the invoice database. That's not needed. We can just search for an object. For that, we're going to go back here, go to our invoice number database, copy the link to it so we can get the database ID. Again, copy this thing here between the slash and the question mark, paste that here. In this case, we don't even need a high limit, just one is enough. And now we set a filter. And we just want to get like this year, right? So we will say, okay, we want to make sure that year equals, and then we're going to pick our current year. So to do that, we head over to the date formulas, and we get now, wait a second, not just now, we want to format the date. So we want to return a date in a specific format. So we want to format the date now as year, so just 3 Ys. And then we want to make sure that, because the information that we have in our Notion database, that's actually not formatted as a date, right? It's a string. So we need to make sure that this whole thing is recognized as a string. So let's actually quickly cut this out, add the toString formula here, and then paste this inside. And now what should happen, and we'll test this in a second, is that it will check whether the title equals to the string version of the year that we currently have. Let's close this, and we can actually run this in isolation. So click on run this module only. Let's see what it pulled in. Perfect. It found the correct property, 2002, 2022, and got us our invoice number. Awesome. So if you create now another year, 2023, once it's 2023, it will pull in that information. So the first step is done. We have all the information inside our Notion database, inside our automation that we need, and now it's just about creating the invoice. So for that, you need a different module, and we need Google Docs. And Google Docs has this awesome function called create a document from a template. And as you can see in the description, it reads that it will replace any merge tags with information that we can map to it. So we pick our Google account, and then we will pick the specific location of the document. So here we can just click on it and browse it. So we want our shared templates, I guess it should be, and then within the shared templates we should have our invoice for Notion YouTube. Perfect. And as soon as you collect it, it will automatically load in all the merge tags that you had in the document as these fields to map. And now you see also, like, if you create now 5 products instead of 2, then you have a lot more fields to map, because you need to map the name of the product, the quantity, the price, and the total price every single time. So again, now that it's not possible, just a bit more work. Cool. So all that's left to do now is to map the information to the stuff that we pull in. So our date field is actually, we don't even have that information there. So again, we will go here and we will say, okay, please format the date now when we create this invoice, and please return this as day, month, year with dots in between. And If you're US based, obviously you can invert months or days, even though that makes absolutely no sense, but feel free to do whatever you like. For the invoice number, we're going to go to our data, and like here in the last object, as you can see, if you hover over data, it always will show you from which module it comes. That's super helpful. So we need it from the last module where we pulled in the invoice number, and we just pick like next invoice number. Actually, that's because I don't think in our template, let's see, it just says, no, it says invoice number. Okay, perfect. So we have the number, and if we want to make it even a bit fancier, we could also add the year to it. So we could again say, okay, please give me the format date with it, but let's actually, for this one, let's just keep it at the number. Okay, my details are again map data from the second round, and we have one field for the complete address. So we're going to open this, put this in, customer details, again, customer details, and we have the complete ones. And as you can see, this is why we create this formula, because otherwise we would need to do this now once for every step, like once for the street and so on and so on. For our subject line, we have something special. If you remember, in our database, we have an individual subject line, but we might not always fill this out. So the way we handle this is we go to our settings and pick the if empty operator. And what it does, it's a bit confusing. If the first property is not empty, it will take this. And if the value that you put in the beginning is empty, it will take the second one. So it's actually right in reverse. I don't know why. Either way, so we say, please check whether our individual subject line, here it is, plain text we need. If this is filled out, take this, and if it's not filled out, please just put something like, okay, invoice number, then the actual invoice number for, and then let's pick the customer name. So customer name should be somewhere here. Customer name here. Cool. Now our customer contact name, so the person that we actually address in case it's a company. That's this one, Mr. Monopoly Man. And now we invoice our services. So our service one, that is product one. So where is it? Product one here. Oh wait, we have it. We need to actually pull in that information. We forgot to pull in the information, so we need to go. We need to go back to our Notion database and create a roll-up for the name. I forgot that, so that we can actually pull the information in here. So what we would need to do is go in here and create like not just roll-up for the price, but also for the name. Because as you see, if you pull in this field, it will not give you the text, it will just give you the ID. I forgot that, so let's just put in product one. That's obviously now not dynamic, but you get what I mean. For the quantity, we can do it correctly, so we do product one quantity. For the price of that one P1 price, we're going to take this number, and the total will be product one total, this here. Okay, product two, we obviously have the same problem, so we take product two, and then we take invoice quantity from P2. It's always a bit of a so this is P2 and P1. Where is the P2 total? Product 2 quantity here. Product 2 price is here. Product 2 total is here. Awesome. And then our invoice total, I think that's another field that we forgot to add to our Notion database. So again, we would need to add a calculation field for the total and convert it to a string. Let's just put 300 in here for the sake of the demonstration. Let's pick our payment goal from here. within 1 week. Our bank details that we also luckily have. This is the customer, this is us, so complete bank details. Our remarks, if we have any, we actually do, I believe. Specific remarks, yes. Our name from here. Bank name, no, where's our name? Email, address, name, here's the name, and then our VAT ID. And yes, that's a good opportunity. As you see, we don't. This simple version doesn't have the actual VAT calculations built in, but once you understand how to build this in general, you could just as easily add now additional properties to your invoice that calculate your VAT based on the price and the VAT amount, and then you can obviously create just different merge tags in the Google Docs for that to reflect. And then you need to put a title, and as a title I actually want to have this part here, right, that we already did, so I just want to have the invoice number plus who is it for, and then we choose where to save it. So I would like to save it in finalized invoices, and that's it. So now we can test it, we can go back, create another version of this invoice and run everything once and hope that everything works properly. We'll find out in a second. Awesome, let's go in our drive and let's look for our finalized invoices. And we have a bunch of other ones, trial ones, in here. This is the one that we just created. So name is invoice number 1 for the game. As you can see, we forgot to put a space here, so we can just go on our back in here and do like a little bit of debugging. So actually we need to have a space here, space, and then we need to also have a space here so that this doesn't get added directly after. Let's click on OK and check the rest of it. Okay, so we have our date, that's the correct date, yep, 10th June 2022, invoice number 1, Susan Doe, Boardwalk, our address, all the details here, an awesome invoice and everything that we need. One other thing that we forgot is we forgot to add the currency symbols. So again, we would just head over to make and add that in the different parts in here. For let's actually just do it here, but we would need to add the whatever currency sign you want in front of. I can actually do this. Zack, zack. Quickly done in front of the prices. Awesome. So that's nearly everything. Now all that's left for us is to make sure that our automation, the invoice number actually updates. So we go back to Notion and we say update a database item and please update from this database that we had here. That was our invoice number, if you remember. So please, in the invoice number database, update the one where it pulled information in from, so this one. And we would like to, for the invoice number, we would like to take the current invoice number and add 1 to it. Never sure whether the plus from there actually works, so most of the time we use this plus. And then as last invoice number, just fill in what we just used as our next invoice number. And now that updates. If you leave something empty, it just doesn't do anything with it, and press OK. So let's try again just to see whether this works. Run this once. Wait for the new invoice to appear. There it is, and you see now we have the space here, so it is correct. And we should also have like dollar signs here. Yes, awesome. And if we go back to Notion to our number of invoices, this should have been increased. Yes, 1 and 2. Perfect. That's about it. Last thing, you can obviously now add to this automation. In the blog post and description, I also have like some explanation of how to now send this automatically to your customer based on the email that you put in. That's also fairly simple. And if you wanted to download the PDF of this, you can also do this. You can just like add a module in between. You can say Google Docs, please download a document, and then put in the document that you just added. So you want to map this to the document ID of the document created here. And now you could, in the next step, insert another module and say, okay, Gmail, please send this via email to whatever email address I put in. But yeah, that's your invoice generator in Notion. Fairly simple to build once you understand this concept of using merge tags in Google Docs, and super, super powerful. You can obviously use it for a ton of other things. Any sort of document that you really need to create, use this way, and yeah, have fun with it. So now you know how to create your own invoice generator in Notion, or pretty much any sort of document generator in Notion. Again, the download for the free ready-to-use template is in the description below. It has a few more additional features, like as I said, the send via email. There's also the blog post that walks you through everything in a bit more detail, so with like the step-by-step properties that you need to create. And lastly, there's another tutorial down there for a simple Twitter scheduling app using Notion and Make. That's also super cool and very good for beginners. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean a lot if you could give this a like or share with someone who might be interested. That helps me out a lot. And as always, if you want to learn more awesome Notion tricks, get regular free Notion templates, and are looking for ways to streamline your workflow, then you should definitely follow this channel. See you in the next one.